Your Art Unlocked is produced by Art UK, the online home of the UK's public art collection. This podcast is supported by Bloomberg Connects, the free arts and culture platform that provides access to over 1,300 museums, galleries, and cultural spaces around the world. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
What do I see? I see a table, newspaper, 2 cups of tea, and what's that on the plate? Is it like knitted or something? Is that knitted fake food?
There's a tray of donuts, beautiful donuts all made of different materials, stripy, velvet.
Yeah, it looks fake. There's a donut in the back that's the same pattern as the cups and coasters.
Wolverhampton Art Gallery has one of the most curious artworks I've ever seen in a museum. Donuts, Coffee Cups and Comic is a still life sculpture made from 21 related parts. There's a table, 16 donuts, a plate, 2 coffee cups with saucers, and a newspaper open on a page with a comic book strip which shows the detective, Dick Tracy.
Oh, the newspaper's made out of fabric as well, isn't it? Ah, okay, that's pretty cool.
These items are all life-sized, but their material is soft. The artwork's been made from stuffed fabric of assorted patterns and colours. The cups and plate are decorated in blue and white china designs, but they are fabric, so won't smash. The donuts appear to be assorted flavours, glazed with soft fabrics of white, orange, red, and there's a stripy one which has really caught my eye. The newspaper sort of flops over the edge of the table, which also appears soft, covered in a light brown material. This is no ordinary still life.
This soft sculpture is fun, it's clever, it's beautifully made, and it's totally relatable to everyone. Everyone appreciates a nice hot drink, a donut, looking at the paper or looking at a comic. It makes me smile. I love it.
What does it make me feel? Am I supposed to feel hungry or something?
My name's Ruth Millington, and in this episode of Your Art Unlocked, a podcast that brings to life some of the more unexpected objects in museum collections, I'm going to explore this inviting, playful artwork and find out, what do donuts have to do with modern art? This is your art in your museums and galleries, so let's get to know it a little better. Now, we know this is a podcast, so before we get started properly, if you want to look at this work for yourself as you listen, head to Art UK and search for Donuts Coffee. Let's start by returning to 1962, when the artwork's maker, American artist Jann Haworth, had recently moved from the States to London. Having started her studies at the University of California, Los Angeles in 1959, she decided to continue her creative career on the other side of the Atlantic. And 1962 was a great time to be in London. Within a year, the Beatles would come to dominate the charts, and groups like the Rolling Stones, The Who, The Kinks, and countless others would provide a soundtrack to the swinging 60s. As well as music, there was a flourishing in art, film, and fashion too. Twiggy wore iconic miniskirts, and London transformed from a gloomy capital into a bright, shining epicentre of style, largely thanks to an influx of young people in the city. It was a dynamic time, as Haworth remembers.
I could very cheaply go to any concert, any ballet, any film that I wanted to, even on, I had £30 a month to live on. And it all just was electric. And I think I was just profoundly changed by that experience. And I realized that I had nothing to hold me back from being whatever I thought I should or could be. So on £30 a week, I somehow made it all work and ate very little, but had a lot of good paint and went from there. And then the burst in printing that made printing cheap and magazines affordable and all of that communication system really launched careers.
Among the careers it launched was that of Haworth, who'd enrolled as a student at the Slade School of Fine Art, then and now among the finest art schools in the world. Among her peers was Peter Blake, with whom she collaborated on the cover design for the Beatles' iconic 1967 album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And here at the Slade, she was taught by the likes of Edoardo Paolozzi. But she didn't necessarily take his advice.
I went down a path where I was contrary to the recommendations of the Slade, in that I was being advised by the tutors and Paolozzi principally to cast my things in bronze. And I didn't want sculpture to be hard and cold. I wanted it to be yielding and warm. And because the things I wanted to do were best represented like that. I wanted to do a dog and an old lady and, and donuts.
For Haworth, the idea must marry the form, by which she means the subject and medium must match up and work in harmony to get the message across. But where did the idea to work with soft fabric come from in the first place?
Well, I was literally sitting on the top of a number 30 bus as I was passing Harrods. I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. And I kept thinking, I really want to make a bouquet of flowers, because I couldn't afford flowers for the bed sit I was in. And I had asked the price of tulips from a street flower seller, and it was just astronomical as far as I was concerned. So I kept ranging through it thinking, well, I could make them in wood, or I could make them in plaster, or I could make them in, and I suddenly thought, but I want the feel of yield. I want softness. Flowers are soft, and kind of limp in some ways. And so it just suddenly hit me that with all the information that I had as a seamstress, because I'd been making my own clothes since my mother taught me to sew when I was 8, I could bring all that and my knowledge of turning 2-dimensional surfaces of fabric into 3-dimensional objects. I had made dolls for my sister. I knew how to make a nose in fabric. And I thought, oh my God, I can beat the boys on this one.
You can find out more about Wolverhampton Art Gallery and hundreds of other collections on Bloomberg Connects, the free arts and culture platform. Download the app today.
At the Slade in the 60s, Haworth was still working against the prevailing sexist attitudes of the time, encapsulated by one tutor suggesting that the girls were there to keep the boys happy. Haworth's choice of soft sculpture served as a direct challenge to her male peers and tutors, as well as their tools. She wasn't casting works in bronze, but in cloth. She subverted all expectations about what sculpture should be made from, as well as its subject matter, to create soft sculpture. Here's Sanna Moore, Senior Curator at Wolverhampton Art Gallery, to define this art form.
Soft sculpture is sculpture made from flexible, non-rigid materials like fabric, soft plastic, vinyl, leather, rubber, foam, and they're often stuffed or draped. So it's the opposite to traditional hard sculptural materials like bronze, steel, and marble. Jann Haworth was deliberately not using conventional sculptural materials like bronze, steel, and marble in favour of soft materials which were more familiar to her, so cheaper, easy to access, easy to make at home on her sewing machine or in a small studio.
By choosing materials historically associated with femininity and the domestic sphere, Haworth reclaimed a medium that had been persistently marginalised by art historical hierarchies, where painting and drawing were seen as the top dogs. Since sewing and textiles have traditionally been the language of women, her choice to work with these materials can be seen as a feminist act of rebellion, reclaiming the value of traditional female crafts. Here's Moore again.
She was using these skills to rebel against convention, which can be seen as feminist, as these techniques can be associated historically with women doing textile work in the home. But she's doing it in a tongue-in-cheek way, so it's a celebration of women and feminism through making artwork using handheld, handmade techniques, but challenging convention.
Looking at the sculpture, it's clear she's challenging another convention too, the convention of still life. As a genre, still life has its origins in 17th century Dutch painting, which features still objects that don't move and are arranged by the artist. You might find flowers, food, kitchen utensils, and items are not random but carry meaning and symbolism. So next time you see an older still life painting, look out for a book which represents knowledge, a rose which represents love, and lemons which were then very expensive and so showcase wealth. Here, however, those traditional still life items have been replaced, with donuts, coffee, and a paper. More modern and more American objects. Donuts are a classic American treat, one that I'm partial to, and one that this artist would enjoy with a coffee as she drove to high school in North Hollywood when she was just a teenager. Dick Tracy is an American comic book strip about a police detective, which was printed in mainstream newspapers. This artwork, and Haworth's wider practice, is clearly an art of everyday life. She had fun taking things that might be considered lowbrow and popular culture and transforming them into high or fine art, and that makes her a pioneer of what we now call pop art. Here's more to define pop art for us.
Pop art is an art movement which connects art and popular culture. It came out of the 1950s after the Second World War, where a new generation of artists turned to popular culture and mass production for inspiration. It's characterized by bold, bright colors and the appropriation of popular imagery from things like comics, books, magazines, television, product branding, and advertising. Most of the generation of pop artists would have been born in the decade before the Second World War or during the Second World War. So they were responding to the boom in commercialism to feed their creative ideas following a long time of post-war austerity and rationing. So suddenly shops were full of branded, colourful products.
With access to a world of images, pop artists could recycle them, mixing and matching references from art history and glossy adverts in contemporary magazines, and drawing from TV and film, which also became important to them, as Moore explains.
And alongside that, there was also the kind of blossoming of the film industry and the popular music industry, which saw the rise in international celebrity icons for the first time. So bands like the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and famous actors like Elizabeth Taylor, Marilyn Monroe, whose faces had become really iconic across the world.
When we mention pop art, it's usually Haworth's fellow American, Andy Warhol, who's first to be mentioned. He became best known for his silkscreen prints of celebrities, and the film industry was absolutely an influence on Haworth too. After all, she'd grown up in Hollywood, where she regularly accompanied her father, the Oscar-winning production designer Ted Haworth, to film sets. Here, she would experience firsthand what it was like behind the scenes in the film industry, a world of celebrity, special effects, and props. Here's Haworth.
Oh, it underpins everything. It always appears. I mean, in every piece I do, I could point to something that comes from the production side of filmmaking. I mean, it's just a little tweak. Sometimes it makes me laugh to include something like that, or a way of doing something. So it relates tangentially or directly to props or a substitute. My father was the art director on production design on Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I was on the set a lot.
Donuts, Coffee Cups and Comic really does feel like a group of props from a movie, ready and waiting for actors to arrive at the stage scene. She's brought a bit of Hollywood magic to Wolverhampton, and she's also brought her sense of humour, which is so important to the artist in a world where she's playing around with representation.
Art is a substitute. It's a kind of version of reality or representation. So that territory of pretend and faux fascinates me. And I never get tired of it. It's like the human face to me. It just goes on endlessly as being both funny and sort of new. You know, it's always new. So if I make a cloth donut, it makes me laugh half the time because I think it's just so absurd. And the absurdity, the fake, the faux, all of that's the territory I love to occupy. And it just made me laugh to think that the idea of different fabrics being different flavors, so red and white stripe would be toothpaste, that was fashionable at that time. And it seemed so funny to me.
Within a museum or gallery setting, humour is a great way to engage viewers and break through any nervousness around looking at art, knowing how to interact with it. Since being a student in London, Haworth wanted to break down those barriers and make her art for anyone to enjoy.
One of the core reasonings that I had at the Slade was that I wanted my work to be accessible. I wanted it to jump out and be something that could be easily understood by anyone.
This sculpture certainly stands out to me. I mean, how can you ignore a plate of donuts? But there's soft power to this sculpture too, which shows how Haworth, an American in Britain and a woman in a male-dominated art world, responded in her own imaginative way to popular culture of the 1960s, reflecting life as she lived it. She's one of the original pop artists and one of the very few women pop artists who pioneered this radical, new, modern art movement on her own terms. And I'm so pleased that this soft sculpture is part of the collection at Wolverhampton, where it's free to view alongside great works of pop art by pioneering women such as Pauline Boty, Erica Rutherford and Sue Dunkley, as well as Andy Warhol, Peter Blake and Patrick Caulfield, among many others.
Wolverhampton Art Gallery has one of the largest collections of pop art in the UK outside London. Jann is one of the few recognised women artists in the pop art movement, and her piece that's on display dates back to 1962, so it's very much of that time.
Just like those Dutch still life paintings, it's immediately appealing. And like those traditional paintings, there are messages to be found in this masterpiece too. Through the subject and medium to match, Haworth has sewn together a narrative about contemporary life, art history, consumer culture, and transformed women's crafts into fine art. This is an art that is guaranteed to make you smile and maybe hungry too. Now, where's the nearest donut shop?
Your Art Unlocked is produced by Art UK, the online home of the UK's public art collection, supported by Bloomberg Connects. Explore more art at artuk.org.